Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we start, let us know, let's get to know each other. Let us know where are you from and how social is working for you in the, I don't know, in the last month or in the last quarter. For those of you who are new here, I'm Adina. I am one of the founders at Socialinsider. Socialinsider helps senior social media leaders to analyze competitors and industry performance so they know what's working and what's not and how to win on social. Today, we're going to talk about Instagram engagement in 2026 based on our latest reports that we just launched. Um, I had I don't know if you had the chance to dive into this report, but I would like to highlight some things that concern me in some ways. For example, the fact that engagement is down by 24% year over year. Carousels remain the most effective format, but when it comes to Reel, it seems that we as social media leaders, we no longer gain an increase in engagement or an increase in views. And audience growth, it's much harder to sustain only with organic efforts. So I'm going to share the, the report. So you can, one second. Yeah, so now you have the link to our Instagram benchmark report. You can dive in and let us know what kind of stats, I don't know, somehow gain your attention or in which way are you concerned or not. My goal for this live session is to share some practical advice from senior leaders. That's why my guests for today are Courtney Coleman, Global Social Media Manager with 9 years of experience in specialized in travel, hospitality, B2B, entertainment, wellness, and nonprofit. And Kyle McCall, Senior Social Media Strategist with 10 years experience in social media and content marketing, previously working for brands such as Hookah, Strava, and Airbnb. So welcome. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having us on.
I think that Kyle didn't still didn't join to the webinar. Kyle, if you hear us, you need to enter to the move from the backstage to the webinar. One of our guests couldn't join us today due to some family urgency. So Chloe sending you hugs and hope we find a slot in the near future to have you in these live sessions. Okay, so hi Kyle, hi Courtney, how are you?
Well, great. Doing well. How's
Great,
everyone?
great. Yeah, sorry. My first webinar. Didn't see I gotta click that enter webinar link. Thanks, Adina.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, it seems that Zoom sometimes has a way of a unique way of working, to say it nicely. Before we jump into the subject and diving into the data and stats and how engagement and how Instagram is working these days, I'm going to share some webinar details that you should know. So you can ask us questions anytime, um, and we're going to reply to your questions live right here. And our goal, as I said in the beginning, is to make it so practical so we can live with some practical and actionable insights right after this live session. So let's start with the questions, right? Because the data, as I said, the data it's quite um, concerning in some ways. For example, Instagram engagement dropped by 24% year over year. So, Courtney, if I don't know, brands hear this number, they will panic in some way. So, what's one thing you will tell them not to do in response to this decrease in engagement?
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting stat there. I would say though to those brands not to abandon the platform because engagement fluctuates. But also, this shouldn't mean let's give the algorithm more chances to pick us up. So let's just post more and more. let's stuff the calendar. I always say good content will prevail always. Is the content valuable to the specific audiences we're trying to reach? And today you have to be more specific with communities and sub-communities within the platforms to hit someone's feed because they're highly curated now. So I would say don't pivot to volume as a priority when value and intention will always be the best answer.
Yeah, yeah. So even though I don't know, somehow the platform has changed, brand, and if you have or if your ICP is still there, you have to find a way to be active in this platform and to connect in your unique way with your audience on Instagram. Kyle, do views matter more than engagement on Instagram in 2026?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say they're both important. Increasingly, I think what we're seeing is people are viewing content but not liking posts. You mentioned this, that there's this decrease in engagement. And I think part of this is just the behavior of the users on Instagram. I think this is one of I think of it as like the TikTok influence on Instagram, where at least for the brands that I've managed, we always saw lower engagement rates, lower engagements relative to views or impressions on TikTok. And I think that that's translating over to Instagram. So do views matter more? I don't know if it's that they matter more. I think that if you're seeing this decline in engagement, see if you're seeing a decline in views as well, because that might tell you it's your content's still getting out there. People just aren't, they're just not using the likes. But I think the like is still a really valuable indicator of what people go the extra mile to say this is like really meaningful content for them.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed is that long form content, it seems that it gets more views and more engagement compared to short content. So um, this insight, together with the social media with the Instagram benchmark for 2026, somehow guide us how to tailor our strategy. So it seems that people wants to stay in the platform, but they want only to view the content, and it seems that they're more attractive to view longer formats. So make sure that not focus only on shorts and only on short form content, but also bring longer content to this platform. And Courtney, if you had to choose only one metric to evaluate Instagram success today, what would that be?
I love this question. So I do think this will vary by industry, but speaking from the hospitality industry, you're building consideration over a good amount of time because booking like a resort or vacation isn't something people often do quickly. I think compared to like the CPG brands or like direct to consumer brands or like a fast food chain or something, the consideration to purchase time can be pretty short. But for a resort, you really need people to see, like, I need to be there. And that takes time. I think one of the actions that is so powerful at showing us that consideration is bookmarks or saves. Not everyone goes back to the posts they've saved, but it shows us they're saving a piece of content for the future. So, like, but it's tough because that leaves out like video completion rates, which is another one I love. People are sitting through the whole video, they're interested, we got them wanting more. Um, and then share rates is also a great signal, like that they're sending it to a friend that helps with consideration. Like, should we go here? Should we book this? So really it's all three of those I think are needed. Like I can't really choose one, but I think all three of those are needed to measure success. But if I had to go with one, I would say saves.
Yeah, yeah. And because in a way, you feel that you have the feedback that it resonates with your audience. So once they save that content, it seems that you successfully created something that is relatable to them and they want to, I don't know, see it later, or in best cases, share it with a closer community. And I think another metric that I would like to add here, or which is for the bottom of the funnel, is how many leads you get, because now with so many options and carousels that are bringing value as a content format to this platform, you can also nurture this and get somehow get some leads or get some in most of the cases leads to your business. And Kyle, as I mentioned, Carousels is team that is leading the platform in terms of engagement. And it also generates saves and views. Yet, most brands are still posting more reels. Is this a strategic disconnect here? Are brands changing the algorithm? And what do you suggest for them to do?
Yeah, I think carousels are a great resource. You know, it's always really interesting to hear in a conversation like this, people coming from different industries. Courtney talking about, you know, in travel, and most of my experience, as you mentioned, at Hoka Strava in the fitness and wellness industry. And so when I think about carousels, the way that we've used them is for a lot of educational content. And we would use carousels as a great format for, you know, whether that's product education and you can have feature call outs in a carousel post or something with some information on training. And we see really high saves and shares with the carousel posts, as you're calling out here. And I think that it's a great tactic for that. And I think that the other thing is, you know, we're all busy as social media managers, and carousels oftentimes can be a lower lift, especially if you have a designer you can work with in terms of like creating programmatic content than reels, where maybe it, you know, involves more of a production.
Yeah, and but also I had to mention that sometimes I feel that carousel change a lot in the, I don't know, in the last 6 months, and now I've seen carousels that look like, I don't know, half of a blog article with so many data, with so many
Yeah.
insights, with so many. So I feel that I need to reserve some time in my calendar to read that carousel. So it's sort of a way of repurposing what you publish on your blog and put it to repurpose it to Instagram. And I think it's worth it to do that in because, as you currently said, saves are important. So it's quite the most important metric when you evaluate the Instagram performance. But also sometimes shares get carousel gets shares. So maybe people don't, let's say, don't comment with you on Instagram, with you as a brand on Instagram, and prefers to share that carousel to a friend or to a colleague, to a smaller community. So somehow I feel that the behaviors has changed. So if in the past we and consumer were more open to expose their ideas and to add comments to specific brands, now they prefer to go to the niche community and express their feelings there in that specific community with people that are, I don't know, maybe they have a connection, they feel more connected in that specific community. Courtney, give us, I don't know, your honest take. Is the real era peaking? Do you feel this way?
I do think it goes back to the quality of content. I don't think Reels as a format is peaking, but I do think a lot of the content being pushed can start to feel similar, especially across one industry. I think so. Standing out becomes about, you know, good storytelling. You were talking about long form video. I do think there's a lot of really great brands doing that well for like more long form storytelling. But like when we talk about the majority right now, short form video is really here. I think it's here to stay for a while. It's how people see the world right now, for better or worse. I was just watching, this is so old. I was watching Anthony Bourdain's show, his cooking show around the world. And you connect more to it. I don't know, because he's telling the stories of these places he's traveling to in a long form, and I think it takes time to connect with the story as you're watching it. And the care and connection lasts longer as a result. And I think with short form, it's harder to do that. But it's the format that's everywhere. We just need to tell better stories to keep people interested after the 30 seconds or 1 minute video is over. I think we just have to put out better stories to counter that reels fatigue.
Yeah, yeah. In some ways, I think brands should move from, I don't know, trending stuff and find their, I don't know, their way, their winning way on how to use short videos and how to, I don't know, uh, tell the story, tell the brand story using this format, but not keeping being, I don't know, trendy or using the trends. Um, as a, I said that saves are sort of the metric that show us that Instagram is successful, and it seems that carousels is the one that bring us. Kyle, I have a question for you. I feel that most brands still optimize for likes, and how would you promote internally moving from reporting likes or engagement to saves and shares?
Yeah, I think the KPIs that your brand chooses to optimize for are sort of going to depend on what your business goal is. But I think generally saves and shares are, I think, extremely high value because what they tell you is, saves tell you that this is something that I want to remember, whether it's like Courtney said, it's like a trip that I'm planning and I want to be able to come back and reference this resort, or some of the things that I've talked about where it's, the sort of fitness content where I want to come back and I want to, when I'm in my running clothes, I want to check out this, pre-run warm-up video. I think that all of that can be a sign that people are coming back to this content and find it really valuable. Shares, I think, shares are really high value because what they're showing you is that somebody who maybe already follows your brand is putting this in front of somebody else. I think that a funny example of this is, I looked at like the DMs between my wife and I on Instagram, and I think in a way, like memes are a love language. You see what two people care about when you look at their Instagram DMs, and if you're making content where somebody sees it and they want to send it to somebody else, I think that signals that content is really high value, is really connected to that person. Um, so yeah, I think that those are both cases to make for looking at saves and shares as metrics to optimize around.
Mm-hmm. So in a way, moving from metrics like impressions and focusing only on metrics that somehow move our ICP into the consideration phase. And shares is one of the metrics that gives you this insight. So we have a question. If or we had a question. We don't have any more. We don't have any other questions. But yeah, use the chat to ask us questions about Instagram metrics. How would you like, or how what the best practices to measure Instagram success today? Because I know it's very challenging, and what we did in the past has changed. And now it seems that we should look at new metrics, and we should know how to promote this internally, and how to put this into our report to the upper management. But I will break a little bit this webinar with a question that I have for both of you, so Courtney and Kyle. I will start a sentence, and please add a word that's coming top to your mind. So a post worth saving is one that, Courtney?
I would say post worth saving is one that I actually want to come back to. A lot of people, never return to their collection of saved posts, but I personally only save a post that I plan to do something with. Like I'm either going to bring it up in conversation, or for me right now, a lot of Instagram saves is wedding related because I'm getting married in September. So my whole For You page is like wedding planner, wedding magazine, wedding photographer, things you probably forgot for your wedding. And so my fiance and I have had these collection of posts for different categories like florals or photographers. So we're using that to come back to and then like reach out to people that we've liked. I do the same for restaurants. So there's a future action associated with that save, similar to what Kyle was mentioning about the back and forth with his wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Kyle?
I love that, Courtney. I think that's I mean, for me, a post worth saving is one that taught me something I want to remember, whether that's planning for a major life event, which is also weddings. People spend a lot of money on weddings. Big
Yeah.
opportunity there for marketers. And I think, or yeah, training for a marathon or planning a vacation. Yeah, I think that the if you're optimizing for saves, then I think that it's content that's going to have something that people are going to want to come back and reference.
Yeah, same here. And I think that I don't know, during a specific time period, some things are happening in our life. For example, for you, Courtney, you're soon to be married. In For you, Kyle, it seems that it's the love language, sharing some love language with memes on Instagram. In my case, I'm looking for advice for kid education and so on. So depending on what's happening in our life, the things that we choose to save might be different. So 3 years later, maybe I'm going to look for something else and so on. So it's important, our content as brands, to make sure that we know the events that happening in our ICP lives, and to make sure that we create the content that they need, because maybe what we created, I don't know, 3 years ago, there is not a match with what I don't know, everything that has changed in their life, in our ICP life. Maria is asking us if you consider cross-posting the same content across different platforms a poor practice. Who wants to answer to this?
I can go. I think it's a great question. I think it really depends on the content. Like, I think it's okay to test a piece of content across different platforms to see which audience it will resonate with more, especially if you have a lot of different kinds of people following those different platforms. But if it feels like there's a lot of the same people who would be seeing the content on these different platforms, I think it does make more sense to also figure out, okay, which platform does this belong on more based on our previous insights, based on what we know about who's following us. But I do think if you're just starting out posting on a particular account, if like you just became the owner of a certain brand, I think it does make sense to start testing the content to figure out which platform it resonates more on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that, Courtney, is, I think so much of it depends on the resources that your brand has. Like I would say, right,
Also
like
that.
yeah, like most recently when I was managing social at Hoka, obviously that's a larger brand. We had enough resources that we could think about different content, different edits for different platforms. But even then, there would be times when, we would post stuff across maybe some photos across Instagram and Pinterest, and maybe the difference is small. Like Instagram, maybe you're posting it in a carousel, and maybe you're doing more of this, some of the text in the photos that we wouldn't do on Pinterest. Similarly, I think TikTok in some ways is a place where, at least at a larger brand like Hoka, we felt like we could be more experimental on TikTok. Our leadership team was on Instagram, but they weren't on TikTok. And so you can kind of get away with some things. You can test some things on TikTok that maybe your VP of marketing isn't going to see it immediately. And it gives you the opportunity. I think the platform also just rewards some of that being a little bit more fun, being a little bit more trend focused than Instagram, where maybe it still has some of that like buttoned up kind of feeling, especially that, the Instagram of the 20 teens had.
Yeah. What I would like to add here is if you have the same ICP, both on Instagram and TikTok, you can share that content. You can repurpose that content to multiple platforms. But if there is a difference, for example, you target a specific ICP and that ICP is on TikTok and another ICP that is on Instagram, in this case the content should be different. But yeah, it depends on the how many resources you have, and I don't know how easier it much how easier it is for you to create content for this platform. It also have Ashley is asking us if do shares and saves train your algorithm or expand your audience reach. Kyle?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think if any of us knew 100% for certain how Instagram's algorithm works, that'd be quite a feat. But I think it anecdotally it seems like it does. Like I would say anecdotally, content that gets saves and shares does end up getting served more. You know, one way you can kind of look at this is the Instagram app. It's not in most analytics platforms yet, unfortunately, but in the app you can see impressions as a percentage of followers versus non-followers. And so I'll always look at, you know, is the algorithm picking this up? I'll look at the that graph. And if you have for example, sometimes content will be 70% views by people who don't follow you. That's a pretty clear sign that the algorithm has been promoting that content.
Yeah, no, just to add to that for sure, I think it does help shares and saves expanding your audience reach, exactly to what you were saying, Kyle, about um, both for Instagram. I think TikTok has the same thing where you can see that breakdown of like if this post has 70 or 80% non-followers, it's telling me immediately that okay, this hit some kind of For You page or some kind of explore page outside of our core group of people. So shares and saves is probably helping with that.
Okay. I want to add another question here regarding followers growth, because it's something that I also have in my mind in the last days. How does your social team look at followers right now? Is there more emphasis on saves, shares, and other forms of engagement, or are followers still a North Star? I can,
I could,
based on the
yeah,
data,
go for it.
it seems that it's really hard to get followers only with organic efforts. And so the engagement rate benchmarks, I don't know, went down by 50% compared to 2024 values. So maybe not adding as a North Star, but also including some budgets, collaboration, doing some, for example, some action that are specific to Instagram, for example, a broadcast channel or live stories and so on. So yeah, Kyle?
Yeah, I would say what you said, Adina. I mean, it's you know always easy to drive followers through paid promotion. Like we would see this when our paid team would be doing a big campaign and they're putting the account in front of new people. That would drive a lot of followers. But obviously that's not going to be your option as an organic social media follower or as a brand with a leaner budget. And I think that, I think with any of these metrics, whether we're talking about followers or saves or shares or engagement, like these are all KPIs, but they're not the goal of social, right? Like the goal of social is to build brand awareness and to get, well, depending on what your specific remit is, right? Like getting the brand out there, building that top of funnel awareness or consideration, maybe driving purchase, but I think that is challenging and organic. And so with any of these metrics, I think it's just getting the brand out there and followers. I mean, I do think followers are a really strong signal, similar to saves, that somebody said, "Hey, this brand's great. Like, I want to keep seeing the content they're producing. I want to make sure it keeps coming up in my feed." So it's a strong signal, but yeah, it's also it's harder. It's a harder behavior to to get now than it maybe was a few years ago.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only thing I would add to that is if I was looking at followers as a important metric, I'd probably look at follower growth over actual follower count just to see, like you mentioned, if paid has a campaign going, just to see like what the response is, just to monitor that follower growth over time, not necessarily like the follower count itself.
Yeah. We talk a lot about how important is to have educational content, entertainment content on Instagram, the things that usually generate saves with our audience. But Courtney, what's the biggest mistakes brand make when trying to be relatable on Instagram?
This one is a hot topic right now. I just saw a LinkedIn post from Tamika Bazil. She's a leader in social as well. She said that authenticity and relatability are not synonyms. And I have to agree. I think some brands try to be so relatable that it costs them their brand personality over time, and that can just confuse your audience. I say lean into your brand personality, whatever that is, like based on values, your target audience, whatever your brand is trying to sell. But I think it should be based on the company, on the brand, and it should be consistent. So I think there's so much to offer that would actually be authentic that may not be so relatable, but maybe it's more like aspirational instead. And maybe that would help the brand stand apart as opposed to trying to just fit into a relatable mold.
Yeah, and I think we have also a question from the audience who Bethan asked us, how would you recommend balancing content that you know will perform well, optimize for engagement, for example, versus content that aligns closely with brands' priorities and strategies? I found that content I think as much more strategic ends up getting far less engagement and views, which is true. And somehow is related with what you said, Courtney. Um, was the balance between authenticity and how to be relatable in a, I don't know, in a profound way on Instagram. Would you like to add something else here?
Yeah, I think, similarly to what we were discussing, I think, you know, it's about what are the goals for your brand on Instagram. Like, I think that you have to think about what's the strategic ends for your brand, because why else does your brand have an Instagram account? Like, if you're maybe, your brand strategy could just be like a meme account, but at the end of the day, if like people are seeing it and they're really engaging with it and they're loving it, but like they're still not really sure what your product does, then maybe the Instagram account's not actually achieving any of the brand goals, even though it's got a lot of engagement. So I think that it has to be kind of be a little bit of both, where you're finding the trends and you're finding the tone that works on social, but also does connect to what your brand is. Like, I mean, one way that I try to think about this is like when you're posting something on social, could any other brand post this? Or are you posting things that feel like they're true to who your brand is? Does your brand even have that kind of a defined enough voice that people would be able to recognize like this is content that comes from their brand? Because I think that can be also a really important practice for building followers, right? Like if your account has a unique tone of voice, that's one of the things that people are going to want to follow to for the same reason that they follow an influencer. It's because they're interested in that account, what it has to say.
Yeah, and this insight remind me of something that I read this morning. A carousel from Pretty Little Marketer. It's someone from UK, and she wrote about how to build a community. And the last question from that carousel was, the last slide was about, if you disappear tomorrow, what your audience will what will remain with your audience. So let's say your brand is no longer exists on Instagram or LinkedIn and so on, what your audience will remember about you. And I think it's an important question to have in mind every time we create content um, for social media and what it truly means to be relatable, how we succeed to create a connection with our audience on, I don't know, across all platforms. Last question here, because I think we have only 5 minutes before we end up this session. What's the relationship between organic social and driving website traffic? For example, how often we should driving to link in bio on Instagram? Courtney?
I'll give my take on this. I think it's definitely going to depend on the industry, the brand itself, and what you're trying to do. I think if your goal with Instagram is more brand building and like a travel space that I mentioned earlier, it's more of a longer term. You're not trying to, with every single post, trying to get them to go to your website. You're not trying to get them to click on something. You're trying to tell a story over time. So it's really going to depend on the industry. If it's, if you're in B2B, if you're in a space where you're sharing like webinar content or you're sharing white books, I don't know, white papers. I don't know if people are doing that often. But it really depends on the industry. So it's my answer to that, and how often you're driving people to a link. The link in bio option that is there, where you click on it on an Instagram profile and it opens up like every single post and there's a different link associated. I think that's always a good thing to have, just in case people want to click. But short answer, I think it's going to depend on the industry and on the goals of the brand.
Yeah, I think driving traffic through Instagram organically is really challenging. I think I mean, I've historically seen really, really low click-through rates for those like in bios. Part of it is just like why? Like if I can use the specific examples, if I'm working for a brand that's selling shoes, like why would I go click through the link in your bio versus just closing Instagram, opening my web browser, and then going to your website? And so I think
Yeah.
the attribution is really hard to measure. And I think this is again where whether in your specific role you're also managing paid or you're working in partnership with a paid media team, like I think that the organic social is best served in building awareness and building consideration, and then paid where you can have that link on the post and it can, or even like you can have a native shop, um, Instagram shop or TikTok shop if that works for the product you're selling. I think that's where you're gonna see a lot cleaner attribution and actually driving sales.
Yeah. And as you said, from the organic perspective, the flow is broken, and you don't have the perfect tracking from the perfect attribution from what they read on Instagram to what make them move to your website. I think it's as you said, Courtney, it's depending on the industry, but I don't know, having 5 posts per week with like link in bio, it's a little bit too much. Maybe I don't know, a, a human way of inviting people to read more and to go to your bio and read more than ending up every post on Instagram with link in bio. One per week, for example, could be a better practice rather than every link in bio, every CTA with link in bio at every post. One or two, I think, should be enough, depending on, but also it depends on the campaigns you are running or the industry you are activating. In B2B space, what I noticed is that one or two, depending on how much, I don't know, announcement or brand announcement you have to make on Instagram, for example. The last question for both of you, Kyle and Courtney, is one format that brands should double down in this year.
I would say maybe an unexpected one, but I would say DMs. I think DMs and broadcast channels are the maybe, don't sleep on that because it's not high reach, but it's an opportunity to really build a deep relationship, especially if you have people that are reaching out to your brand, sharing what they're doing. And I think, there's a huge opportunity in that to do some surprise and delight, whether it's, sending out like free product. And then those DMs can turn into much larger moments for your brand where you're really building those advocates.
Okay.
Agreed. I would say for Instagram, I would say beyond the broadcast channels, I would say it's stories. Double down on stories. I think sometimes they can be overlooked. I think they've gone through like waves of importance, but I think stories are generally people are still using it at a very high rate on Instagram.
Okay. And the last question for Ashley, she's asking us, should we be using edits for Reels, or is posting natively in the Instagram app fine?
That's a good question. I don't use edits for editing. I'll use, so I guess is the question like, should I open the video in edit and then just post it through edits? I think maybe Instagram was considering that in the algorithm for a while, like it would, have that like made in edits kind of thing on the post and feed. So that might still have an impact, but I personally don't bother doing that. If I didn't edit it in edits, I won't post it through edits. I think maybe the more important thing, as always, is just like making really good content.
Yeah, I've tested edits a few times as a standalone app. I think right now if you want to use that new linking other reels in your reel thing that brands are starting to do right now, you have to use the edits app to do that to then link out to another reel, which I think it's a cool like feature right now, but we'll see like the long term of that. But I think the app itself is just like another just good video app similar to like a CapCut or something like that. But I'm not sure its impact on like performance of the post on Instagram.
Okay. So thank you so much for all this question and answer that I got for you, Courtney and Kyle. Thank you so much for sharing from your work, the insights that you learned so far with Instagram. I think it's important for us to remember that when it comes to Instagram saves, it's something that it's important for brands and for Instagram performance. But also, let's not forget that Instagram also includes stories, include DMs, include broadcast channels, and focus on this content formats in 2026. You can connect with us on LinkedIn and let us know what you learned today from this live session. Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. These are all of us, and great questions, everyone. Thank
Yeah,
you all
thanks
for the
everyone.
invite.
Yeah, indeed. And every time you need to compare your Instagram performance, socialinsider.io, you have all the engagement benchmarks for all the major platforms. So thank you again, and see you in 1 month. Bye.
Ready? Bye.